Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have dragons. As it turns out, dragons aren't just fantastical creatures from the Middle Ages with stories of knights and heroism, and they aren't just adorable, rideable friends from modern movies. They're in the Bible too. But they definitely weren't friends. This dragon was actually the devil himself. Here's how it's described in Revelation. Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the world astray. The devil takes many forms throughout his descriptions in the Bible, and here he is described as having 7 heads and 10 horns, and has a tail capable of sweeping 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. While you may just see this as some symbolic imagery, it's not hard to believe that with all the other terrifying creatures in the Bible, they could have been describing the dragon quite literally. In our number 9 spot today, we have Nephilim. The Nephilim are creatures that are neither angel nor human. They are in fact the result of angels having children with human women. While they are sometimes grouped alongside with giants due to them sometimes being described as quite large, they're actually much more than giants. Genesis refers to them as heroes of old, men of renown. People find Nephilim fascinating due to the fact that they can be found in many different cultures and mythologies across the world. Ever heard of Percy Jackson? Pretty similar concept, right? The children of gods and humans. Most of the Nephilim ended up being wiped out in the flood, and any remaining were wiped out in the following wars. There is also apparently a reason that there have been no recent sightings of Nephilim or similar creatures beyond the fact that you may believe they never existed. God decided that any of his creatures who mated with a human would be, quote, bound in everlasting chains. In our number 8 spot today, we have vampires. Turns out that these blood-sucking beasts aren't just from Twilight, and they definitely aren't as hot as Robert Pattinson or sparkle in the sunlight either. Vampires actually appear in the Bible at least 50 times. Here's one way that they're mentioned, quote, "There are those whose teeth are swords, whose fangs are knives, to devour the poor from off of the earth, the needy from among mankind." While some people say that it's obviously just some colorful imagery and not actually vampires, there are many theologists who believe the link between the devil, drinking blood, and sinning is pretty clear. While the word vampire is never explicitly used in the Bible, the term vampire itself didn't actually appear until around the 15th century. Also, stories of blood-sucking creatures goes all the way back to ancient Egypt, so it's definitely possible that vampires were around, they just didn't know what to call them yet. In our number 7 spot today, we have the 200 million horsemen. What's worse than 4 horsemen? 200 million horsemen, of course. But instead of representing the apocalypse, I'd argue that these ponies are just a little bit creepier. Appearing in the book of Revelation, here's how they are described. The horses have the head of lions, and they are spitting smoke, fire, and brimstone from their mouths. They also have the tail of serpents. It's not just the horses that are bad, the riders are said to claim 1/3 of all humans' lives on Earth, and the army is led by 4 fallen angels. Definitely not an army that any military would even attempt to take out. Even if someone did want to fight them, it is said that they're invisible to, quote, unbelievers, so some of us may have a pretty hard time winning that fight. Also, for the population at the time, if they wanted to kill 1/3 of human lives, each horseman only needed to kill about 7 people, which doesn't seem that difficult. In our number 6 spot today, we have Woman on a Beast. The Woman and the Beast, also known as the Scarlet Women, and a much more rude name that I probably can't say here, is mentioned in the book of Revelation. She is, of course, a woman who is riding on a scarlet colored beast with 7 heads and 10 horns on her forehead. It says, quote, "Babylon the Great, mother of earth's abominations." The beast seems to represent the devil, as it's said its number is 666, and it is given the power of the dragon, which previously represented him. As such, the woman is seen as a false prophet and a large representation of immorality. Many people choose to follow and worship the beast as they believe it is stronger and more powerful than any other creature, and all those who do receive the mark of the beast. Eventually, the two are both caught and they are thrown into a river of fire and sulfur. In our number 5 spot today, we have Daniel's angel. Physical descriptions of angels aren't often seen within the Bible, but when they do show up, they're actually pretty scary, and you definitely probably wouldn't want to meet one in real life. In the book of Daniel's going through a pretty rough time, going through a period of time where he didn't bathe, drink wine, or eat any good food. Hey, I've been there, Daniel, don't worry about it. But then an angel appears to him. Never happened to me. Quote, I looked up and there before me was a man dressed in linen with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist. His body was like topaz, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and his voice like the sound of a multitude. So let's break that down. Basically, this angel had a crystal body, an electric face, shot fire out of his eyes, and spoke with the voice of an entire crowd. Sounds pretty terrifying to me, but hey, be not afraid, right? In our number 4 spot today we have Ophanim. While we're on the topic, let's take a look at some more terrifying angels. I really don't know why we couldn't have just stuck with beautiful winged people. To each their own, I guess. These guys are said to be the second highest and most holy of the 10 orders of angels, and their bonkers physical description is one you've probably seen depicted before. Here's what Ezekiel has to say. And then I saw 4 wheels beside the cherubim, one beside each cherub. The wheels radiating were sparkling like diamonds in the sun. All 4 wheels looked alike, each like a wheel within a wheel. When they moved, they went in any of the 4 directions, but in a perfectly straight line. Where the cherubim went, the wheels went straight ahead. The cherubim were full of eyes in their backs, hands, and wings. The wheels likewise were full of eyes. I heard the wheels called wheels within wheels. So yeah, they're basically giant spheres of wheels covered in eyes. Pretty creepy if you ask me. In our number 3 spot today we have the Seraphim. While you may understand Seraphim as being some of the most holy angels and protectors of God, this isn't actually the only way the term is used. When the Israelites rebel to the wilderness, God sends out venomous snakes to kill them. These cobra-like animals being referred to as Seraphim. It describes a snake whose bite causes a painful burning sensation and then a severe inflammation that leads to death. The wilderness finally being described as a thirsty and waterless land with its venomous snakes and scorpions. So not just snakes, but also scorpions. Think personally, I might put off camping for a little while. There are also a couple of times where seraphim are referred to as being demonic in nature, likely due to their association with what happened in the wilderness. In our number 2 spot today we have cockatrice. Cockatrices within the Bible are often described as being half rooster and half snake, and it is sometimes used interchangeably with the creature known as the basilisk, saying that a cockatrice can only be killed if made to look at its own reflection. They apparently live in a hole in the ground and are incredibly poisonous. One bite from them could be enough to kill you. It is also said that they, quote, possess the most deadly powers, plants withering at its touch, and men and animals dying poisoned by its look. Which does start to sound pretty familiar if you compare it to Harry Potter's depiction of a basilisk. It is described as a fiery flying serpent, and if you already didn't like snakes, just wait until you see a flying snake covered in fire. No thank you. In our number 1 spot today we have donkey. Oh my gosh, this one is not exactly terrifying, but it is an honorable mention. This is not just a regular donkey, but a talking donkey. I feel like I'm in Shrek. In the stories, a prophet named Balaam was told to curse God's people, being given gifts to try and accomplish this. But God tells him not to, but he's pretty excited over all of these riches he's being promised if he does do it. So he disobeys God, riding out on a donkey. The donkey is stopped in the road when he sees an angel, and Balaam tries to hit him, trying to get him to move. God then gives the donkey the power to speak, but instead of making waffles, the donkey is pretty mad about being hit. He says, "Am I not thine ass?" which you gotta admit is pretty funny, or maybe I just have a childish sense of humor. Starting off at our number 10 spot we have the Behemoth. One of the oldest books in the Bible is Job, and within this book there is a gigantic and powerful creature called the Behemoth. In the book, the Behemoth is described as a powerful grass-eating animal whose, quote, bones are tubes of bronze, his limbs like bars of iron. This creature is so large it is described as having a tail that moves like a cedar, and this creature is only able to be tamed by God. One weird thing about this creature is that they really make sure to mention that it has a belly button. Not entirely sure why that was important, but they made it very clear. It is said that in Jewish tradition this creature is a primal earth monster as well as a symbol of chaos. In our number 9 spot today we have the first beast. This creature is so named because he is quite literally the first beast that is mentioned in Revelation, and everyone just felt like that summed it up well. This creature really is a beast, however, as being described with 7 heads and 10 horns as he rises up out of the ocean. I'm just saying, the Loch Ness Monster sounded creepy until I heard about this guy. This creature doesn't just have way too many heads and horns, however, no, of course not. He also has the mouth of a lion, the feet of a bear, and is said to have the body of a leopard. Imagine a lion, bear, leopard with 7 heads coming out of the ocean. Like, absolutely. No thank you. In our number 8 spot today we have the second beast. Okay, we talked about the first, so of course we also have to talk about the second as well. This beast, rather than rising from the ocean, shows up as he rises from the earth. Rather than 10 horns, this one's only got 2, but he also speaks like a dragon. The jury is out on what exactly that means, but I saw the dragons on Game of Thrones. I'm not too keen on any of those guys speaking to me. Basically, the whole job of this creature is that he can sort of perform these false miracles that drive people to worship the first beast, and if they don't worship the first beast, well, then he can kill them. I mean, sounds scary enough to me. In our number 7 spot today we have Leviathan. No, for once I am not talking about the prehistoric sea monster, and instead talking about the biblical creature that inspired its namesake. The Leviathan was a sea serpent monster who had more than one head, which seems to be a sort of theme we're seeing. This is a beast of chaos who is able to be defeated at the hands of God, as said in Isaiah 27:1. In that day the Lord will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, with his fierce and great and mighty sword, even Leviathan the twisted serpent, and he will kill the dragon who lives in the sea. Many people believe that the many stories of the Leviathan that are seen in the Bible are actually what inspired the tall tales and legends of a sea serpent monster. In our number 6 spot today we have locusts. If you're new here, there's only one thing you need to know about me, and it's that I absolutely hate bugs. They're gross, they're creepy, they freak me out. But these guys in particular, locusts, well, they truly are something else. In Revelations 9:3-10 it reads, "Then from the smoke came locusts on the earth, and they were given power like the power of scorpions of the earth. They were allowed to torment them for 5 months, but not to kill them, and their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it stings someone. In appearance, the locusts were like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were what looked like crowns of gold. Their faces were like human faces." As one of the 10 plagues in the Bible, I ask, where does it end? This sounds like a true nightmare. And listen, we've fairly recently seen devastating swarms of locusts that caused a ton of damage, like in 2016 in Russia or 2020 in India. In our number 5 spot today we have cherubim. When we think of cherubs, we normally think of like a kind of Cupid type character, like a sweet little baby angel flying around. You know, nice stuff. Turns out, however, that is not at all what these babies are described as being. In Ezekiel 1:5-11 it says, "As I looked, behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, and a great cloud with brightness around it, and fire flashing forth continually, and in the midst of the fire as it were gleaming metal. And from the midst of it came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had human likeness, but each had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the soles of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. Under their wings on their 4 sides they had human hands, and the 4 had their faces and their wings thus. Their wings touched one another. Each one of them went straight forward without turning as they went. As for the likeness of their faces, each had a human face. The 4 had the face of a lion on the right side, the 4 had the face of an ox on the left side, and the 4 had the face of an eagle. Such were their faces." I'm not sure where we got the flying baby idea from, but honestly it seems to be a lot better than whatever those creatures would look like. In our number 4 spot today we have giants. I don't know about you, but anything just exceedingly large I personally think would be terrifying. There are tons of mentions of giants in the Bible, with the most famous probably being Goliath. Samuel 17:1-58 says, "And there came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. There is even the mention of the Amorites, a race of giants, 80 different times. People who study the Bible estimate that the heights of these guys would have been somewhere from 6 to 30 feet, but some mentions claim that these giants were as tall as cedars, which could make them somewhere from 50 to 100 feet tall. Either way, it's safe to say they were towering and terrifying. In our number 3 spot today we have dragons. I already mentioned the Game of Thrones dragons on here, so really, need I say more? Dragons are mentioned several times in the Bible, and they're actually thought to be a creature that came from crocodiles. Dragons are a terrifying piece of mythology seen in many different ancient texts and cultures, which begs the question as to how and why. Well, many people think that dragons just might be an attempt at giving an explanation to dinosaur fossils that could have been found at the time. At the end of the day, it probably would have been more shocking if these creatures weren't mentioned at all, considering how they were a part of mythology at the time. In our number 2 spot today we have the 4 beasts. We had the first and second beast, and now we have the 4 beasts. I mean, come on. These names are starting to get a little confusing, but to be fair, these beasts are certainly ones that are hard to forget. In the book of Daniel, he himself has a vision of 4 beasts which are said to represent the 4 empires. All 4 of them emerge from the sea and are full of destruction and chaos. They run amok with power, leaving violence in their wake, but alas, they eventually pass from the earth. The first of the 4 is described as being a sort of cross between an eagle and a lion. The next is said to look like a bear who is hungry for flesh. The third is a leopard creature that has 4 wings and 4 heads. The final beast is definitely the most terrifying of all and is actually said to be the destroyer of the world in the vision that Daniel has. This beast is said to have 10 horns as well as teeth made from iron. In our number 1 spot today we have vampires. We aren't talking about Edward and Bella today, we are going to real creepy vampires who don't sparkle in the sunlight. Honestly, I was surprised to find out that there are vampires in the Bible, but according to Proverbs 30:14, there are those whose teeth are swords, whose fangs are knives, to devour the poor from off the earth, the needy from among mankind. It is said that there are about 50 different biblical verses that are said to either be about vampires or at least that have vampiric imagery. Many people claim that these passages have nothing to do with actual vampires, but I think that's safe to say about pretty much any of the monsters on this list today. There's just a lot of mention of blood drinking in the Bible, which many people connect to Satan himself.
In our number 10 spot we have the table throwing demon. Okay, here's some crazy footage for you of a possible real life demon. I mean, heck, the Bible has warned us that demons are tricky and they play with us and influence us and make us feel fear. Well, that is seemingly exactly what happens in the video I'm about to show you. Here we have a woman who is sitting in what looks like a banquet hall, and she's on her cell phone when she hears a chair move. She turns around and sees nothing, but then the chair beside her moves and she freaks out and falls on the floor. Then a bunch of chairs and tables begin to move and you see her get so frightened that she tries to stand up and then she falls on the floor again. She could have fainted too, it's kind of unclear. The footage is so wild and it's so clear that this woman isn't an actress and that this isn't edited footage. It's too natural, and I mean, if she is, then man, she deserves an Oscar. If you're liking this video, don't forget to give it a like as it will really help us out. In our number 9 spot we have Satan. Well duh, if there was going to be one demon on this list that we all know about, obviously it was going to be Satan himself. Satan was once a guardian cherub, but God found wickedness within him, or so is said in Ezekiel 28:12-15. Luke has also mentioned that Jesus saw Satan fall from heaven like a lightning bolt, and that is how he gained the name of fallen angel. Something that I didn't know until this video though is that apparently Satan does not rule over hell but is punished and just imprisoned with the other souls in hell. That's interesting. From my understanding, Satan is the king and creator of demons, and these demons have influence and infiltrate society and cause sadness and havoc. So basically we're living amongst many demons these days. Everywhere you look, everything you hear or read, there's some kind of messaging that hits an emotional chord that makes you feel understood. But then you'll hear something else that is a conflicting perspective, and you also feel understood from that. And the result is that you're left confused and you feel pulled in many directions and you will feel vulnerable, and that's when it will be easy to control you. Beware of the influential demons like Satan. In our number 8 spot, we have the shapeshifters. Guys, I'm a little shocked that the Bible subtly points to shapeshifters. I guess I just assumed that this was a modern day conspiracy theory fueled by the Marvel movies, but no, there is evidence to suggest that shapeshifters have been around and spoken about since before the Bible. Mark said, after these things, he appeared in another form to 2 of them as they were walking into the country. He appeared in another form to 2 of them as they were walking into the country. That's it, they exist. I'm a believer. Also, what's the consensus? Should we just now conclude that Obama's security guard is indeed a shapeshifter? I feel like yes. Who's a believer? Let me know in the comment section below. In our number 7 spot, we have the chair moving demon. Okay, this could be just a ghost or a demon. I mean, who knows? In this clip, you see a girl in perhaps a classroom or a common area as there are computers and lounge chairs, and she seems to be looking at something when suddenly she runs out of the room. Then a few moments later, you see the lounge chair move and the door close. The ghost/demon is having a meeting, so he wanted his privacy, guys. The devil requires privacy. Okay, but seriously, what is this? How is this footage not more mainstream? I'm scared. I hope somebody called a priest after witnessing this footage. This place definitely needs to be cleansed. In fact, we should get the priests of the world to just cleanse the world. We may just need a general world cleansing because clearly the demons are among us, judging by this video. I'm scared. I want my mom. In our number 6 spot, we have the reptile people. Okay guys, we know that there are many references to reptiles in the Bible. I mean, if you don't, then I'm here to tell you that indeed there are. In fact, the Bible starts with Adam and Eve is persuaded by the snake to eat the forbidden fruit. So the stories really begin right away. But there have been evidence of people believing in the reptile people for many centuries, even dating back to ancient Mesopotamia, where they created an artifact called the Ubaid lizard man, which has made people believe that it is possible that they worshipped lizard people, the reptiles. In Revelation 12-9, it is said, quote, "And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him." The serpent was thrown down to earth, eh? Sounds a lot like a reptile person confirmation to me. Now, whether or not they are demons, that is the question. There have been way too many reptile Hollywood sightings to count, so beware, folks. In our number 5 spot, we have the lawless one. In the Bible, 2 Thessalonians 2:9, I might have pronounced that wrong, sorry, it's been a while since I've been to church. Thessalonians 2:9, we are warned about the lawless one who is doing the work of Satan, aka a demon. The coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan with all power and false signs and wonders. Who exactly this message is referring to? I mean, it could be any number of people in history that promised wonders and things that they could not keep. Historical political leaders that may have tricked the masses. I mean, there have been many, from Genghis Khan to presidents in this day and age. So who's to say who this verse is speaking about, but perhaps at this point this benevolent demon has reincarnated many times over, considering the Bible stories are from thousands of years ago. In our number 4 spot, we have the man that couldn't speak. Demons are spoken about so much in the Bible, and on many accounts, stories are told where it is believed that people have come across these demons. Mark speaks about a demon that made someone's son unable to speak. This demon caused its victim to have epileptic-like seizures, in which he was at times thrown down to wallow on the ground and made to foam at the mouth. No one was able to get rid of this demon but Jesus, after saying to the spirit, "Deaf and dumb spirit, I command you, come out of him and enter him no more." This has led a lot of people over the thousands of years to believe that mental illness is really just demonic possession. Obviously, we know better now about what mental illness is, but you may be surprised to hear that there are still a lot of people that believe that multiple personality disorder is demonic possession. In our number 3 spot, we have the parking lot demon. Years ago, a news station in Serbia called Channel 4 reported the wildest story. Apparently, a woman was in a parking lot low, when suddenly something invisible started chasing her, and whatever it was jumped from one lamp post to the other. She was so frightened that she went to the police to report that a maniac was chasing her. The police took a look at the footage and couldn't believe what they saw. It looked to be a transparent human running back and forth. Some believe it to be someone from another universe glitching into ours, but the woman swears that it was chasing her, so some believe that it was a demon. It's so crazy to see, and I read that the Bible warned us about a spirit called Abaddon, whom is the leader of the demons, and honestly this could very well be proof of one of the Abaddon demons, as this woman was definitely terrorized by something. In our number 2 spot, we have the demon selfie. This is a picture of a demon and a boy, and it's crazy to see. This pic isn't even blurry, so that makes it more horrifying. Basically, a mom from Pennsylvania named Heather was taking a picture of her son. When she looked at the photo, she saw a mysterious person with black eyes creeping out from behind him. She said that there was no one in sight when she was taking her photo but her son. So that is ridiculously insane. This looks like a demon porcelain doll in my opinion. Oh my gosh, that is just the most terrifying. Imagine if she was home alone with her son. I truly hope not. I would never ever want to be home alone again if this happened to me. In our number 1 spot, we have the Brazilian Demon Man. Yo, this has to be the scariest thing I've ever seen. Okay, maybe not, but it is still terrifying to think that multiple people witnessed this. Okay, so in 2015, many reports were being filed about a strange demon-like wolf man in Brazil. It started popping up everywhere, and then someone managed to review street footage and got it captured in a still shot. Here we have a man who looks like he's part wolf or straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster, to be honest. He has long pointy ears and strange wolf-like legs and appears to have a small tail. The shot is blurry as it's night and pitch black, but if this isn't a demon, then I don't know what is. This is definitely one of the demons that the Bible warned us about. Hey Brazilians, beware.
Number 10, the first beast. Let's open up the first point of this list with, of course, the first beast. The first beast is one of 2 creatures that are described in the book of Revelation, saying to appear one after the other. So let's go over how this beast is explained in the book. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So yeah, pretty damn crazy. Each head is supposed to represent a king, hence the crowns, thought to maybe be a representation of Roman emperors. And the first beast was said to be a king itself, but it was cast into perdition before it ever had a chance to rule. Number 9, the second beast. Now second on this list, we're obviously going to move on to the second beast, which arrives after the first, of course. This one doesn't get a description as long and detailed as the first, but is described as follows. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It's also said to have incredible powers, and it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people. It's most known, however, for its creation of the mark of the beast. This is a sign that is used to identify people who follow the beast of the sea, usually seen as the Antichrist. So the second beast would mark humans with this symbol and direct them to follow after the first beast, and for this it is also described as being the false prophet, the 2 said to have been sent by Satan to take control and deceive people. Number 8, pit locusts. This next creature is not one single creature, but is instead a terrifying prediction for those of us who aren't fans of creepy crawlies. The Bible describes 10 different plagues, one of these being 5 months of torment caused by pit locusts. And here's how the Bible describes them. Then from the smoke came locusts on the earth, and they were given power like the power of scorpions of the earth. They were allowed to torment them for 5 months, but not to kill them, and their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it stings someone. In appearance, the locusts were like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were what looked like crowns of gold. Their faces were like human faces. Definitely not something you would want to run into while out on a hike. The scariest part of this is that it's actually pretty likely to happen. In 2016, enough locusts to cover 270,000 square miles invaded Russia. Number 7, cherubim. The cherub that you're probably imagining is likely a fat little baby spitting water water into a fountain. But cherubs in the Bible were actually pretty different, being described as otherworldly beings with 4 faces that emerge from smoke and fire. Here's a snippet of how they are explained in Ezekiel. They had a human likeness, but each had 4 faces, and each of them had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like burnished bronze. Under their wings on their 4 sides they had human hands, and the 4 had their faces and their wings thus. Their wings touched one another. Each of them went straight forward without turning as they went. They appear in the Bible over 90 times and are said to be God's throne bearers and his attendants, representing God's spirit on earth and symbolizing his worship. Number 6. Behemoth. According to the book of Job, sometimes referred to as simply Job, the behemoth was God's first ever creation. Supposedly a giant creature with tremendous power, it's described as follows. Behold Behemoth, which I made as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold his strength in his loins and his power in the muscles of his belly. He makes his tail stiff like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are knit together. His bones are tubes of bronze, his limbs like bars of iron. It is said to be a primeval monster of chaos being defeated by Yahweh at the beginning of the process of creation, and according to a later Jewish tradition, it was said that the behemoth would become food for the righteous at the end time. Some historians believe that the behemoth may have been an early exaggerated description of an elephant or hippopotamus. Number 5. Leviathan. No, it's not just a roller coaster at Canada's Wonderland. The Leviathan is a creature that goes hand in hand with the behemoth. The Leviathan was a sea monster with multiple heads that was mainly featured in the Old Testament, and just like the behemoth is said to be a beast of chaos and is also said to be killed by God. One excerpt saying, "In that day the Lord will take his sharp, great, and mighty sword, and bring judgment on Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the coiling serpent, and he will slay the dragon of the sea." The Leviathan is probably the beginning of many sea monster stories that would come about as humans started to take to the water and explore the oceans. Famous ones include Sir Humphrey Gilbert's description of a sea creature with the head of a lion, the legendary Kraken, and the one we all know, the Loch Ness Monster. Number 4. Giants. Giants aren't just found hiding up beanstalks, and they are described many times within the pages of the Bible. One of the most famous probably being Goliath, who is slain by David. Samuel saying, "And there came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coast was 5,000 shekels of bronze." There is in fact a whole race of giants mentioned who are called the Amorites, being brought up more than 80 times. "Yet it was I who destroyed the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of the cedars, and he was as strong as the oaks. Yet I destroyed his fruit above and his roots beneath. Also it was I who brought you up from the land of Egypt, and led you 40 years through the wilderness, to possess the land of the Amorite." If they were truly as tall as cedars, that would put them at around 50 to 100 feet tall. Number 3. Werewolves. I'll be clear here, the Bible does not ever refer to werewolves by name, but it does have plenty of imagery and stories that lend themselves to our current understanding of the creature. In the book of Daniel, we see God curse a man into becoming an animal, one of the most significant references to lycanthropy and transformation within the Bible. It says, "You shall be driven from men, and your dwelling will be with the beasts of the field, and you will eat grass as oxen, and will be wet with the dew of heaven. And 7 years will pass over you, till you know that the Most High rules the kingdom of men, and gives it to whoever he will." Werewolves have also been mentioned in times coming even before Christianity. This excerpt comes from a book written in the year 440 BCE. It may be that these people are wizards, for the Scythians and the Greeks settled in Scythia say that once a year every one of the Nuri becomes a wolf for a few days and changes back again to his former shape. Those who tell this tale do not convince me, but they tell it nonetheless and swear to its truth. Number 2. Daniel's 4 beasts. This next one is not one beast, but actually 4. In the book of Daniel, the prophet has a vision of 4 different beasts representing 4 empires. They all emerge from the sea, wreaking terror and destruction. But like many of the creatures before them, they die during their time on earth. They are described as follows. "And 4 great beasts came up out of the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. Then as I looked, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and the mind of a man was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second one like a bear. It was raised up on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was told, "Arise, devour much flesh." And devour flesh they certainly did. The 4th beast is said to be the one that would devour the entire earth. Number 1. Unicorns. You probably don't think of unicorns as anything scary, just some fantastical horse with a horn on its head. But unicorns in the Bible are actually pretty terrifying. Similarly to werewolves, the unicorn isn't actually called by that name in the Bible, but the description has led most people to believe that that's what it is, and future translations do include the word unicorn. The quote goes as follows: "It's said to have the body of a bull and a single horn that is similar to an ox. Deuteronomy saying, 'A firstborn bull he has majesty, and his horns are the horns of a wild ox. With them he shall gore the peoples, all of them, to the ends of the earth. They are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh.'" So yeah, these guys were actually pretty mean. Their horn is not used for spreading the magic of friendship, but instead used for killing people.
Number 10. Dragons. Dragons have been part of mythology for a while, but they've also been a part of Christian legends. St. George himself, apparently he slayed a dragon. I can't even paintball, and this man took down a biblical dragon. Revelation 22, it reads, "And he seized the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. 1,000 years? I feel like we needed more time than 1,000 years. I don't know. What year is it again? We're due for a couple of dragons. Sleep in fear. Number 9, the second beast. Yeah, I know. I'll get to the first one later. You know how we do it here on YouTube. You won't believe number 4. Know what I mean? Revelation 13:11. "Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon, causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people." So there were a lot of witnesses. I'm sure that was quite jarring for every party involved. Also, it causes everybody, both small and great, rich and poor alike, you'll be marked by this demon. You'll be marked on your right hand or your forehead so that no one can buy or sell from you unless, they get rid of that mark. That's the name of the beast, or the number of its name. Revelation 13:16. Number 8, giants. Mentioned in Samuel 17:158. "And there came out from the camp a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits at a span." I'm 6'2", I don't know what that means, but that's pretty tall. "He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze." Spoiler alert, Goliath fell to David, but there's a race of giants called the Amorites, and, well, they stepped into it. They're actually mentioned more than 80 times in the Bible. One description mentioned in Amos 2:9-10 paints quite the picture. "Yet it was I who destroyed the Amorite before them, whose height was the height of the cedars, and he was as strong as the oaks. Yet I destroyed his fruit above and his roots beneath. Also it was I who brought you up from the land of Egypt, and led you 40 years through the wilderness to possess the land of the Amorite." That is quite the description. If somebody were to describe me, they'd be like, "Ah yes, Taylor, the height of that bush, and the strength also of that bush." Number 7. 4 beasts of Daniel. 4 beasts, that's a lot of beasts. It's like a 4-in-1 here. "The first was like a lion, and it had eagle wings." Quote, "Then as I watched, its wings were plucked off, and I was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a human being. And a human mind was then given to it." Daniel 7:4. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty intimidating thing to see. These entities are described as a lion with eagle wings, and there's also a bear, there's also a leopard, and this 4th beast that's still a complete mystery. So there you go, fill in the blanks yourself. The bear has 3 ribs in its mouth also, between its teeth. It's very scary to look at. The leopard also has wings as well as 4 heads. So it's like 8 beasts in total. It's like 8, we got like 13 now. How many heads are we counting here? Heads or bodies? Like how are we counting them? The mysterious 4th beast is apparently full of horns, and it's got iron teeth and 10 horns protruding out from it. So it's full of horns and it's got more horns. All the horns. The beast symbolizes the great 4 kingdoms, but the ribs and the teeth thing, that's gonna be in my head rent free. That's really scary. Number 6, the Nephilim. The Nephilim are demigods. They were described, of course, as being gigantic in size, and in Genesis 6:1-4, they're mentioned as such. "When people began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all that they had chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in immortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. Again, awfully high, maybe 80s, that's okay with me. 120, I don't want to limp to my death. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God went into the daughters of humans, who bore children to them. So these sons of God, these fallen ones, many believe are not the greatest. They're fallen sons like Lucifer, that kind of thing, you know what I mean? Number 1333, there's a passage that says, "And there we saw the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them." Yeah, giants, we're grasshoppers, with Lucifer in the picture, no thanks. I've never felt smaller, if I'm being honest, or scared. Number 5. The Leviathan. Isaiah 27:1, quote, "In that day the Lord will punish Leviathan the fleeing serpent with his fierce and great and mighty sword, even Leviathan the twisted serpent, and he will kill the dragon who lives in the sea." Yeah, we're talking about sea monsters now. This one has more than one head, again, as do most on this list. The Leviathan is a beast of chaos, specifically. It was defeated at the hands of God, and once upon a time, Sir Humphrey Gilbert saw a beast in the sea that had a lion's head. What do you know? Could it be? Many biblical verses mention said Leviathan. I will not fail to speak of Leviathan's limbs, its strength and its graceful form. Who can penetrate its double coat of armor? Who dares open the doors of its mouth? Ringed about with fearsome teeth. Its back has rows of shields tightly sealed together. Yeah, if this was a boss in Zelda, I wouldn't win this battle. This is I've never heard something described so fiercely in my entire life. Number 4. The first beast. Welcome. Told you we'd do it. Number 4. You won't believe it. Let's do it. We talked about the second beast, so, in Quentin Tarantino fashion, we gotta do the first one afterwards, get you caught up. The first one, literally, the first beast, is referred to in Revelation 13:1-2. "And I stood upon the sands of the sea, and I saw a beast rise out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority." There's actually 2 of these monsters. This one has 7 heads and 10 horns. This beast was once a great king, but before it could rule, it was cast into perdition. There's many who believe that this first beast is a literal antichrist. Number 3. Vampires. Remember when Edward said to Bella in the woods, "Say it." And then she's like, "Vampire." That and Robin Williams' Jack, both really emotional on the soul. Well, it turns out vampires were real. Vampires were mentioned in around 50 verses from the Bible. Now, of course, this is an ongoing argument because, well, obviously we want to know if they're real, but the verse goes as such. "There are those whose teeth are swords, whose fangs are knives, and they're to devour the poor from the earth, the needy from among mankind." Now, many believe, of course, it's not actual capes floating and turning into a bat vampire, and rather just the wealth of the people that's being devoured, But I don't know. Sea monsters, locusts, multiple heads with multiple horns. I don't know. It sounds like vampires would be the least of our concerns. Number 2. Plagues. We grew up studying medieval plagues, but did we ever imagine that we'd live through one like we did the past few years? Who could have predicted any of that? Why, the Bible. Of course, it was there all along. That's why we're here, right? Does it hold any clues to our impending doom? Has it been right before? Revelation 6 and Matthew 24 both foresee this pandemic hitting before the return of one Jesus Christ. So, I don't know. Maybe there's a silver lining. And he's got an excellent beard. He's due to arrive any minute now. And finally, number 1. Locusts. We saw these in 2016, just floating about. God, that was terrifying. This is Revelation 9:3-10. The Bible is home to some strange events, otherwise, terrifying. "And then from the smoke came locusts on the earth, and they were given power like the power of scorpions of the earth. They were allowed to torment them for 5 months, but not to kill them. And their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it stings someone. In appearance, the locusts were like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were what looked like crowns of gold, and their faces were like human faces." Well, that's terrifying. That's a scary, scary passage. I'm not coming for your beliefs in any way, shape, or form in this entire video, but that is jarring to imagine. Don't sin or you'll get locusts with human faces sent to fly your way. Awesome. Among the 10 plagues in the Bible, this one sounds like it's perhaps the worst because, well, I don't like bugs. 5 months of torment caused by pit locusts. This could happen. I'm not trying to alarm anybody, but back in 2016, locusts covered over 270,000 square miles in Russia. Just out of nowhere, just hundreds of thousands of locusts. Now, none of them had human faces, but it still sucked nonetheless.
Number 10, locusts. Here is the first and probably most obvious, and to me, probably one of the most horrifying. The Bible makes references to locusts in Revelation 9, and they are referred to as the pit locusts. They are one of 6 disasters that are set to come in the book of Revelation, said that they are not given permission to kill, but exist for the sole purpose of tormenting people. Sounds a bit like my sister. Here's how they are described. Then from the smoke came locusts on the earth, and they were given power like the power of scorpions of the earth. In appearance, the locusts were like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were what looked like crowns of gold. Their faces were like human faces. As we know, locusts are all over the place on earth, being a species of short-horned grasshopper. I don't know how much biblical tormenting they do, but in 2016, enough locusts to cover 270,000 square miles invaded Russia, and having to even read that headline was torment to me. Number 9. Behemoth. The references to the behemoth come from the book of Job, not Job. As some of you pointed out, I was a silly little fool last time I said it and pronounced it wrong. So there you go, and I hope you're happy now. Now here is how the behemoth creature is described. Behold Behemoth, which I made as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold his strength in his loins, and his power in the muscles of his belly. He makes his tail stiff like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are knit together. His bones are tubes of bronze, his limbs like bars of iron. Many people believe that the behemoth is actually just an exaggeration of a hippopotamus. And if you know anything about hippos, you know that they're downright terrifying, and you definitely do not want one for Christmas. Hippos are known as the deadliest land mammal on the planet and are responsible for about 500 deaths in Africa each year. They also have the strongest bite force of all land animals and have been known to take on full packs of lions. Number 8. Unicorns. Okay, don't click off just yet. Yes, I know unicorns probably don't actually exist, but this is similar to the behemoth for the fact that people think the description of the unicorn was actually a different real-world creature. So here's how they were described in Deuteronomy. A firstborn bull, he has majesty, and his horns are the horns of a wild ox. With them he shall gore the peoples, all of them to the ends of the earth. Because of the description of having one horn, many people believe that this was actually referencing a rhinoceros. Like the hippo, they are a real-world creature that is pretty damn terrifying. Because of their poor vision, rhinos can often be incredibly unpredictable, charging after things if they are unable to identify whether or not they are a threat. A large full-grown rhino can weigh up to 3,000 pounds and are capable of flipping over a fully loaded vehicle. So if you're ever on a safari, you may want to keep an eye out for these modern day unicorns. Number 7. Snakes. Snakes are referenced many times in the Bible. One creature that was believed to be a reference to a poisonous viper is the cockatrice. They are said to live in a hole in the ground and can kill a man or animal with only one bite. They are described as possessing the most deadly powers, plants withering at its touch, and men and animals dying poisoned by its look. While you may not immediately think of a snake as a horrifying creature, maybe you or someone you know keeps one as a pet, there are some pretty terrifying snakes out there across the world. The saw-scaled viper is said by scientists to be the deadliest snake of all, apparently being responsible for more deaths than all other snake species combined. One of the largest snakes in the world is the green anaconda, which can grow to around 30 feet long. They eat around 40 pounds of food a day and are one of the only snake species capable of consuming a human. Number 6. Leviathan. The Leviathan is one of the main scary creatures described in the Bible, thought by many to be Satan taking on another form. Here's how he is described. In that day the Lord will take his sharp, great, and mighty sword and bring judgment on Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the coiling serpent, and he will slay the dragon of the sea. Like the behemoth, he is said to be slain by the Lord. While some people think that the Leviathan is some sort of mythical sea monster, other people believe that this was a description of a massive crocodile. Fossil evidence of the largest crocodile ever showed the creature to be 40 feet long and weighing 17,000 pounds, but those prehistoric crocs obviously don't still exist today. The largest crocodile recorded in recent history was named Lolong and lived in the Philippines, measuring 20 feet long and weighing over 2,000 pounds. Crocodiles also have the strongest bite of any animal in the world, applying over 5,000 pounds of pressure. creature. Number 5, werewolves. Alright, here's the part of the list where we move out of science and get into the more speculative and paranormal, because right now I am going to convince you that werewolves were both in the Bible and still exist today. So here we go. In the book of Daniel, we see God cursing a man into becoming an animal, sending him to live with the beasts in the field until he learns his lesson. Werewolves have also been mentioned in other texts before the beginning of Christianity, the past nation of Scythia believing that there were people who turned into wolves at every full moon. Okay, now let me get into this bizarre and wacky conspiracy theory that I just love. Werewolves exist today because the royal family are werewolves. The next 4 people in line for the throne were all born under a full or new moon, and their royal blood is actually werewolf blood. Queen Elizabeth herself is not a werewolf, but is aware of them and doesn't want Charles to take the throne and start a new era of werewolf domination, and that's why she's hanging on for so long. If you don't believe me, I don't care. Number 4, dinosaurs. Okay, no, dinosaurs do not still exist today, unless you count birds, but I think we are close enough to a real-world Jurassic Park that I can put this on the list. Again, if you have any complaints about this, take it to the complaints department down below and I will ignore it and scroll past. In the book of Job, God is speaking of real creatures when he describes an enormous creature that has a tail that sways like a cedar, is not alarmed by raging waters, and its limbs are like rods of iron. Probably the behemoth, and many people believe that the behemoth could have also been a dinosaur known as the Brontosaurus, one of the main dinosaurs you can see featured in Jurassic Park. It is also described as ranking first among God's creations, and since the dinos were here long before us, it would make sense that a dino is what this passage is in reference to. And while Brontosauruses were herbivores and overall not that threatening to human life, dinosaurs were still massive and are pretty terrifying to look at, even just in museums. Number 3, aliens. Alright, we finally made it to my obligatory aliens are totally real entry. And you're probably wondering, I don't remember aliens being in the Bible. Well, they were, and no, I am not crazy. Yet. One species that is mentioned in the Bible is the Nephilim, born from angels mating with human women. God was not a huge fan of this and wiped them out in a flood and subsequent wars. The Nephilim are sometimes described as falling from the sky, and it's led to some, totally sane, people believing that the Nephilim were actually descriptions of aliens. There is tons of believable evidence out there surrounding the existence of aliens, especially coming from the release of the Pentagon's UAV reports. If you haven't seen my other video on that, then you should go watch it because I honestly really enjoyed making it. I also don't think you need government evidence to believe that aliens are out there. The universe is infinite, and you just have to believe that there is at least one other planet out there capable of sustaining life forms. It just makes sense. I am not crazy. Aliens are real. Number 2, vampires. Now you are going to think I'm totally crazy because I'm now going to tell you that not just aliens and werewolves were in the Bible, but yes, vampires as well. One of the main references to what people believe to be a description of vampires is this passage. There are those whose teeth are swords, whose fangs are knives, to devour the poor from off the earth, the needy from among mankind. While some people believe this is just colorful imagery for being greedy, there is reference to vampires all the way back in ancient Egypt. So while they don't use the word vampire, it's just because they didn't have that word yet. Now let me tell you why vampires definitely exist and are out there right now. The royal family has vampires. Yes, Prince Charles is apparently not just an evil werewolf overlord, but also a vampire. Prince Charles has a fascination with Transylvania, and while promoting a television show in 2011, he revealed that he is actually related to Vlad the Impaler, the inspiration for Dracula. So yes, vampires are real, and they are in the royal family. That is a fact. Number 1, demons. Alright, now here's one that some of you are more likely to believe. Obviously, alongside angels, demons are a huge presence within the Bible. They are usually said to be fallen angels that can usually be found hanging out in hell with their good pal Satan. Many people believe that these demons are real and they can be found interfering with human life. If you've watched like any other video on this channel, then you know that there are plenty of stories and real-life accounts from real people who believe that they have had run-ins with demons or even conversed with the devil himself. There are people who have stories of using Ouija boards and communing with evil spirits, purposefully making a deal with the devil, criminals who claim to have been possessed by demons when they committed their crimes, and the countless exorcisms that have taken place throughout history. Seems like plenty of evidence that these rude dudes are pretty real.